phenomenal means that you've went above and beyond. There's good, there's great, and then there's phenomenal. He didn't know T.I. was going to be on the show. So he's like, I gotta go. Next comic, I have to leave. And they're like, Sterling, you're jumping in. And as soon as T.I. walked in the room, he just stopped coming back to give the mic to me to host. My first set was like my first time having sex because I could not get it up. So I was like, you guys just don't know me because I'm from Edmonton. And then Kenny Robinson comes, he goes, hey kid, good job, man. You wanna do the show?
That's a good Kenny Robinson.
So they book me for the next Nubian night. I've never done stand-up.
Oh no.
I walk into
Nubian night on your first.
Yes, my first show ever.
It's Johnny Late Night! And now here's your host, Johnny Rogers!
Welcome back, everyone, to episode number 83 of the Johnny Rogers Show. If you want to support the podcast, just go to patreon.com/The Johnny Rogers. There's tons of exclusive content on there, from full stand-up comedy sets to ad-free episodes of the podcast. Now, my guest today is often described as a high-energy performer and a crowd favorite, which has made him one of comedy's top rising stars. His material stems from his experiences with relationships, family, being a father, current events, his outlook on life and the world, and those awkward moments that people from all walks of life can relate to. He has traveled all across Canada, the US, and even overseas with notable performances as a finalist in the San Francisco International Comedy Competition in 2013, winner of the Edmonton International Comedy Festival Young Guns competition in 2013 as well, and he was also a finalist in the Seattle International Comedy Competition in 2014. He has also performed for the troops in Kuwait, Iraq, and Afghanistan, plus his comedy has taken him to Dubai and the prestigious Just for Laughs Festival in Montreal. As a writer and actor, he has worked on season 20 of the Canadian comedy television show This Hour Has 22 Minutes. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for my friend and yours, comedian Sterling Scott. I'll cut together an intro and just throw it onto the conversation wherever it makes sense. Sterling Scott, everybody. Welcome to the show, Sterling.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm happy to be here, man.
Yeah, dude, it's like to get you on. I was just saying that that's the one thing I miss about, well, there's a lot of things I miss about downtown Toronto, but it was just the accessibility of you just hop on a streetcar or you walk to wherever it is. And then it feels like Ottawa, everything feels so far away. It's all so spread out and there's only one. As the nation's capital, it's an embarrassing city in terms of the amount of potholes, the amount of terrible housing situation that's here. It's just
man, then you guys had a lot of construction going on too.
Lots of construction, but nothing ever. It's just like Eglinton. It just never gets finished. too many
finished. That thing was being worked on since I was in high school.
Yeah. I don't remember how we actually first met. I'm sure we were on a show together somewhere in Toronto because we were already friends on Facebook. But then I saw you again at the Broadhead Brewery show. But man, what a fun show that was. That place was they were screaming. It was crazy.
Yeah, they were an awesome crowd, man. I mean, it's always enjoyable when you get a show like that. But I always give credit to the crowd because the crowd came to have a good time. And what a lot of people don't understand when I say that is that the crowds will have different types of energy. There's the type of energy where you come in and their feeling is you better make me laugh.
Yeah.
Then there's the energy of we came here to have a good time. And that crowd came to have a good time. They would have had a good time if there was no show. They were laughing, talking, enjoying themselves. And then when the show kicked off, all attention and all love was towards that stage. So shout out to Broadhead Brewery for hosting the event and having such a phenomenal audience.
Yeah, dude. I'll get you, can you tip your camera down a little more? There's a lot of back a bit. There was just a lot of headroom. There you go. Now we can get you full in the shot. No, I'm always in producer/host mode when I'm doing these things.
Man. Gotta wear all those hats.
Gotta make sure that you're all framed up, What I love asking comedians to, when COVID hit, I know to beat a dead horse here, how did you adjust to, because you're a professional touring comedian, so if like that's, I mean, I was talking to Mike Rita about this. He was like, it's my identity. Like I felt like I lost, like, who am I without going out on the road constantly and doing these shows? So what was kind of like your thought process when all that shit
Uh,
went down?
when the pandemic first hit, the first month, I was like, I'm on vacation.
Yeah.
I work. There is no days off really, unless you are successful enough to be getting weeks off because we don't get paid when we're not performing. So every weekend we're out. And so oftentimes when we go to see new places, it's because we're performing there. So the first month I was cool with it. But then in the second month, I realized, oh, this is going to be around for a long time. And what really affected me at first was having the ability to provide for yourself taken away from you. I never thought when I started stand-up comedy that I would ever be restricted from being around people, which is, basically what we do every single day. I thought that was an impossible thing to do, and it happened. And I had to learn how to adapt quickly because of the fact that I don't have a day job. There is no other job. Stand-up comedy is my only source of income. And I had to start doing Zoom shows. And the Zoom shows, even to this day, are not the best ways to deliver comedy. Comedians look for a response and reaction while they're performing, and Zoom took that out. It kind of just became a bunch of people staring at you. And
Yeah. Or not staring at you, just a
yeah,
a blank screen with a name on it or something, right?
yeah, I've had all kinds of weird ones. I've had ones where moms were beating their kids in the background,
No.
dogs are barking, someone's vacuuming. I've seen couples fighting in the house, all kinds of
Uh,
stuff that is a massive distraction. And it's like when you're watching on Zoom, what you don't realize is you're secondary to all the stimulations that are around that person. When you're live, you're locked right in on that person. So I had to learn how to uh, perform in a way to get that response. And the one thing I learned about myself as a comedian is that I'm resilient, because a lot of people who are like, I'm not doing the Zoom shows. And I'm like, I don't have the luxury of saying,
mhm.
I can't, I don't have to. I don't have the luxury of saying no to a lot of things. And fortunately, I was able to make money. I had a show for my birthday. I did one for New Year's. I did, ones for companies, corporates, you name it. I've done them. And I had to learn a new style. I had to learn a new way to deliver. I had to learn a new way to communicate. And so what that allowed me to do was survive as a stand-up comedian. And I'm grateful for being tested, because you don't really know who you are until your feet are in the fire. And I
Mhm.
realized that no matter how hot the flame, I'm ready to walk on them coals. And so now that the pandemic is done, I have a newfound appreciation for the crowds, a newfound appreciation for the art form, for the work and effort. And I'm just happy that I never lost my love for comedy the entire time.
Yeah, dude, that the whole time I like as soon as I came back, my first thought was like everything is like it's the world was already uncertain before COVID, but now it showed you just how quickly everything can change. And the thing that I always wanted to make a priority was like if I see any artist, whether I go to like a small like music show or a comedy show, if I like this person's art, I make sure to tell them that
Mm.
because like you never know when you're gonna not have that opportunity, and you don't know if you just saying that could totally like turn their whole life around, like
It
just a
absolutely
few simple
does.
words, even over like DM. If I see a funny clip, I DM the person. I don't even know if they're gonna respond, but I'm just like, hey, that's hilarious, keep doing it.
Yeah, that's honestly, it feels great. It feels fantastic because, Your jokes are much like your children in that you love them and other people can't stand them. And so
Yeah.
when someone doesn't like a joke, it does hurt. Some
Yeah.
people will tell you, yeah, I don't care, you're not my crowd. But I'm not gonna lie, it does affect me because my intention was to make you laugh. My intention is to make as many human people laugh at the same time. However, there is the pitfall of you try to please everyone, you please no one. So it's not the intention of trying to please everybody, but even if you don't like the joke, you should see the humor in it.
Yeah.
So when you get compliments on your art form, it feels fantastic. It genuinely, sometimes I even repost when people say good job and stuff like that because there are a lot of dark times in stand-up comedy. No matter how good of a performance you may see, you talk to that comic, they'll tell you how terrible of a performance they have had
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
how you'll be saying, like, I never forget, I was in Iraq doing comedy shows for the troops, and you get soldiers that take you from show to show. And so I was doing 3 shows a day in different bases. And 2 of the shows I got standing ovations. And in the third show, I bombed. And the soldier's like, I don't understand what just happened. He said, I just saw you do that exact set,
Yeah. Yeah.
word for word, and get a standing ovation. And right now, you've got nothing, like nothing. I don't get it. I don't get it. And I was like, that's what comedy is. Comedy is such a sensitive art form in that you're expecting to elicit an emotional response from somebody. Now, much like hypnotism, if they don't want to laugh, they're not going to.
Mm-hmm.
If they don't like you, they're not gonna laugh. If they don't like the style of comedy, they're not gonna laugh. If there's too many distractions, they're not gonna laugh. So there's so many things that can affect a good performance. And so that's why as a comic, you're supposed to understand that bombing is inevitable and to accept the pain that comes with it. Don't run from it. Don't make excuses. Don't say, oh, well, there was this, there was that. Just take the bomb, learn from why you bombed, learn what happened in the moment. And now, when that moment comes again, you could say, I've seen this moment,
Yeah.
I know
Yeah.
what happens, and I know how to attack it. And the more you see and work with stand-up comedians, the more you will see the more seasoned ones when in a situation where it's like, oh no, the mic just died, right? They'll be like, yeah, I've been in this situation. Put the mic down. Someone will come take the batteries. In the meantime, project your voice, stay active, keep moving. But if you've never seen that situation before, you might just be like, hey, my mic's dead. We got to stop the show,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
So it's it
I just kept, yeah, when that happened to me at the Broadhead show and the mic wasn't working, I just kept yelling at Rob that I want the minutes back.
yeah.
And it was such an inside baseball thing, like to be like minutes, like, but they got it. They were like,
Hmm.
oh, like, because I talked to some of the guys after and they're like comedy fans. So they understood like we have an allotted amount of time and that's your
Yes.
set length.
Mhm.
That's the coolest part for me is like with podcasting and everything, the average comedy fan is way more savvy. Like if you were to do the same joke and they saw you do the same joke if they went to 5 of your shows and they saw you do the same joke at all 5 shows, they'd be like, yeah, it's part of the process. But before
Mhm.
they knew that that was part of the process, they're like, I already heard this. Like, what are you
Yeah.
doing? It's just
Yeah.
education. That's all it takes.
Well, stand-up comedy is relatively new in terms
Mm-hmm.
of art form. I mean, it's still not even respected as an art form. Yeah, as you
Crazy.
know, in Canada, it's not
Yeah,
considered
yeah.
an art. And so the thing with it is people don't realize that it's a subjective art form in that, what you may think is funny, another person may not. And so when you go to a comedy show, you can only do what you think is funny and hope that your crowd comes to you. And from there, you can't really do much more.
Yeah, no, exactly. A lot of these podcasts, the kind of theme that I like to keep on it, some people do like trending news stuff or whatever, but what I like doing is asking the guests to provide a word, and it could be any word that just comes to your mind as I even say that. and we'll see if we can banter on that particular word. It's just like an exercise, if you will.
Oh, well, phenomenal. That's the word that came to
Phenomenal.
my mind. Yes.
All right. So, what does the word phenomenal mean to you?
Phenomenal means that you've went above and beyond. There's good, there's great, and then there's phenomenal. Phenomenal is that plus one that I knew what you were gonna do, and you gave me a little bit more that I didn't expect, and I
Mm,
love it. And that's why phenomenal is what I strive for. I always strive for what can I do plus one. Uh,
mm,
and when I have a phenomenal set, you'll know it. You'll see the the way that the crowd starts to mimic my energy and feel what I feel, and they could see my story. And for me, that is when you've hit a phenomenal set.
hmm.
When you come off stage and people come to you and tell you about one of your jokes, it's always one. It's never the whole set. There's
Yeah,
always
yeah,
one joke
yeah.
that just resonated with them, that just hit them dead in their soul. And they'll come and be like, I feel like I know you. I feel like I'm connected to you. I feel like that lets me know I've had a phenomenal set.
What is there one that I want to do one stand-up set that was phenomenal to you, and then one that was the opposite of phenomenal,
Well, I
where
could
you could
definitely
tell
do
the
that.
difference.
The last phenomenal set I had was actually at Kenny Robinson's Nubian night just recently, the last Sunday of
Nice.
April. The reason why that was a big phenomenal performance for me was the lineup was stacked. It had a lot of talented comedians. It was a just for laughs showcase, which means everyone's bringing like the
Eat.
best stuff they've got,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
best of their best. They're not just there to have a good time, they're there to try to win the attention of the largest comedy festival in the world. And um, the crowds there are they're either going to scream and let you know they love you, or they will sit there dead silent or even boo you.
Oh man.
So you don't need to ask anybody, did you like my set? How did you feel about it? You know
Yeah.
exactly how well you did that night. And so with 10 comedians, six of them touring headliners, so Martha Chavez, Marito Lopez, Dana Alexander.
I'm getting
I'm talking,
chills.
I'm talking legitimate certified top tier
Yeah.
comedians. And I had to go last after all of that. So now another thing is that you want your performance to be original, unique. So I had a set list that I was prepared to do. And as the show was going on, I could hear each one, a comedian would always do a joke that is similar to mine.
Like
And I would have,
like
so
content wise, you're saying, right?
yes,
Like yeah,
like
yeah.
it, not that it's not that it's copied. It's I don't want to have any of the subject matter that you have.
Yes. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So you want to be like, I stand out. So one comic came out and he talked about, something with dating, that a very specific thing, right? Like going down on a lady. And so I had a joke about oral sex. So I took that out. Then another comedian went up and they did a joke about what was it? Something else. But by the end, Dana came on now, and she was doing a lot of like COVID jokes. And now I had COVID jokes too. And so I had to remove 5 jokes from my set.
Oh,
And then I had to rewrite the set. And then I had to figure out, how can I still tell my story? How can I still be separate? How can I stand out? And I had to do something that a lot of comedians were surprised by. See, I'm a high energy stand-up comic, and that works phenomenal in, black rooms because they like confidence, they like energy. And
mm-hmm.
I was
Bernie
watching,
Mac, right? Kick it.
right. And so you're just watching nonstop
Yeah,
people
yeah,
going
yeah.
high energy. And so then I switched up my entire flow and I went low energy.
Mm,
And I took a big risk in doing something that I'm not comfortable with. This is not my style. This is not how I perform. And I ended up destroying. I ended up having I would say the best set of the night. And it was a phenomenal performance because I came up with a theme walking towards the stage. And the
Wow.
theme was I'm 40, right? And so that was my theme. That's what I'm going to talk about. And every joke was banging so much that when I came off stage, people were quoting my sets to me. They were
Hell
like,
yeah.
I'm 40. And then, or they'll say like this joke or that joke. And so the fact that I was able to perform at that level after following that many amazing comedians who all had great sets. Like, I'm not saying that these were any slouch sets, they were killing. That was a phenomenal performance for me. On the inverse of of that, it this one always comes to mind because whenever I tell comedians this, I always say, if you haven't cried because of stand up, you haven't started stand up. Stand up is an emotional roller coaster. It'll bring you to the highest high and it'll make you feel the lowest of lows. When you have a really bad set, the only thing I could equate that feeling to is being broken up with by someone that you really loved. Because it's like your whole life is just in shambles.
Feel like
So,
they cheated on you. Like it feels like
yeah,
betrayal, you know?
it's
It's that
horrible
kind of
because
deep
it's this
hurting.
empty feeling.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I was supposed to perform in Las Vegas at Caesar's Palace,
Ooh.
and I was flown out. And then the I would say that the day before the show, the promoter says I messed up, I double booked, but you know what? You could stay in the hotel and you got the free flight. Just enjoy your time. We'll rebook you. I said okay. So then the next day, I go shopping out of town at the outlet malls, which is an hour away. I get a call literally 1 hour and 15 minutes before showtime. And the promoter goes, hey, um, the other person missed their flight. They're not going to make it. Do you want to be on the show? And I'm like, I'm an hour away. And he's like, well, it's on you. And of course, I was very young at the time in my career. I was at the 3 year mark, probably less, somewhere around
Wow.
1 to 2 years. And so I'm like, I don't want to lose this opportunity to perform at Caesar's Palace in Las Vegas. I literally dropped all my bags, whatever I had not paid for, whatever, I just left it in the store and I ran to the car, jump in
Wow.
the car, drive all the way down to the MGM to change. Change. I was with my girlfriend at the time. We drive to go to Las Vegas, but I forgot the Vegas Strip is full of cars.
Oh
I
man.
literally abandoned the car on the street and start running. So I tell my girl, I'm like, listen, you do whatever you can. I gave her money, go valet it, whatever you got to do. And I'm running down the street now.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
running down the street in a full suit, a full white suit, and I'm running. And I get to the venue, sweat dripping off my face. And the guy goes, you're up, and puts the mic in my hand.
Oh
I went
man.
out and I absolutely tanked.
Because no prep time, right? There's
I
no.
wasn't I had a horrible set, but again, I wasn't prepared. I
Hmm.
wasn't able to handle this high stress situation. And I ended up bombing. I panicked when I got on stage. I kind of fumbled my first words. There was no confidence. I tried my first joke, it failed. So I panicked. I went into my closer. It got a mild chuckle. And
Oh,
then I panicked even more because I go, if that's all I got for that joke, the next jokes are even worse. And yeah, I tanked hard. And the guy then went on, the host who had booked me spent the entire show just saying how terrible I was and I was garbage and that he wishes he had never had me and that Canada should be ashamed of you and that
oh
you're
my God.
horrible. And he would do that and then come and stand right backstage. And then he would go right back out and do it again. And then he'd come back. On the third time when he was out there, I was ruined. I just left. I just picked up my
Yeah.
bags and I walked out. And as I was walking out, my girl at the time was coming. And she's like, what happened? And I was like, it's over. I went back to the hotel and I was in the shower and I just started crying in the shower.
Oh
I mean,
man.
I'm beating my fist off the wall, tears running down my face. All I'm thinking is, oh my God, why am I even doing this? I'm horrible. I suck. What am I going to do with my life? I don't know. I was so distraught and destroyed that then I had to deal with, getting phone calls from my friends like, what happened? Like they flew you out there. They said you're horrible. They never want to see you again. And I just had to sit there and explain, like, I bombed. I just bombed. And again, just like the soldiers who had seen me do 2 shows and get standing ovations and then watch me bomb, these people at home were like, we don't get it. What jokes did you do? And I go, the exact same set you've always seen me do. And they're like, what happened? Like, it doesn't make any sense.
You know what I like though is the accountability, because you could have easily told your friends, like, I was an hour away. They told me I wasn't on the show, and then I was shopping, and then the guy missed his flight, and then I had to rush and run, and then that's why I bombed. But you're like, I just bombed. I don't know what to tell you.
Well,
You know,
I mean, if I
you
was
can cut that stuff out and just be like, I wasn't prepared. It's the same stuff, but it is what it is. Like,
yeah. And that's
you
why
just kind of gotta own it, right?
right. And that's what I want people to understand, especially comics coming up, that it's when you kill, it's your fault. And when you bomb, it's your fault. It's never going to be fair where it's like, oh, that's not fair. This happened. But you still picked up the mic. It's still your fault. I had one where T.I., when T.I. started comedy, yes, we were on the same show together. And
I think I've seen this video.
Well, the second one, his second ever
okay.
performance. So he walks in with Usher, his wife, and we're in the belly room in LA, which only holds about 100 people. It's very tiny.
Yeah, I've been there. It's a cool little room.
Yeah, so no matter where you sit, you're about 15 feet away from him. So now the room gets completely rammed up by comedians. And I am supposed to be closing the show. Well, first off, there was another little sneaky move I didn't like. I was supposed to be hosting the show. And the comedian that was hosting, he's like, I have to leave. I have to leave. I have to leave. I have to leave. He didn't know T.I. was going to be on the show. So he's like, I got to go. I got to go. I got to go. Next comic, I have to leave. And they're like, Sterling, you're jumping in. And as soon as T.I. walked in the room, he just stopped coming back to give the mic to me to host. He just stood there. And then when I'm supposed to take over to host, he calls me up to perform.
Oh, this guy.
And keeps the mic. And so I'm sitting there like, oh, that was a sneaky little move you did there.
Who was it? Bill Burr?
No, the comedian. I can't remember his name at the moment, but it was like, for me, it was like, listen, if you're going to pull moves like that, it only shows that you are limited in where you're going to go. Because if you had to pull a move like that, just so that you can say you took a picture with him, shook his hand, you know what I mean? You got to understand that that's a really crappy move. So now I went on stage, and because it's full of comics and nobody was trying to listen, everyone's just talking loud. I'm talking like they act like there's no show happening. And so I had to single out a portion of the crowd that was actual audience members and just deliver the jokes to them. And they were even like, this is ridiculous. Like, what's going on? Why is it so loud? Like, they won't even shut up.
Yeah.
And so I did my little set of jokes. And when I came off stage, the 4 or 5 people that were listening were like, man, we wish we could have heard your set, but at the same time, I didn't have a good set. Not that it was me delivering the jokes bad, not that it was me. It's that no matter what, they just weren't there for me. And I got to just own it that I did not have a good performance. And so even when it's not fair and it's not, well, you can't really blame yourself for that. They weren't paying attention. They were, hey, man, you picked up the microphone. You
said attention's on me. I want this.
You're holding the smoking gun. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You got to take that L. And now the one thing I learned, though, is when that situation happens again, I will have an idea of how to attack and approach it. So from the worst of your shows comes the best of your knowledge. And that's how you turn a good performance into something phenomenal.
1,000%, because the more actually you fail, just the more you can see those red flags happening like immediately. I'll never forget, like, scariest performance and like shakiest one I've ever done was I got an opportunity to open for Kenny versus Spenny, their live show.
Yep.
And it was in Oshawa, Ontario at the music hall, and no seating, everyone standing for the whole show. And
Ooh.
they have someone, I think it was Trevor Brown, did like 10 minute, no host, just him doing 10 minutes off the top. He introduced me. I came in and did 20 minutes, and then I brought them on. And for the whole 20 minutes, I had 10 people in the first two rows looking and nodding and paying attention, and everything else was just chaos. There's people banging on tables over here, having a full conversation, like taking shots, like random woos in the middle of like a setup. It was just like, and I just, like you said, I just stayed right focused on these because it was the only thing that could power me through it, right? Like it was probably like a 25-minute set, but I did it in 20. You know, when you just kind of, I just want to get this done.
Yeah, I know
Just
that
gonna
you
say
go
these
on
words as
autopilot.
fast as possible.
Yeah,
But a
that
big learning
sucks.
experience, because like I ended up the people who booked me through that, they did another charity show where it was me opening up. It's all Kenny's. It was Letterkenny live show, the Letterkenny show. And it was a little bit chaos at the beginning, but I was like, oh, I need to, instead of worrying about like, oh, I have to have a good set so that these guys think I'm a good comedian, I'm like, I'm just going to make fun of this crowd. And so I was just mocking everyone, because then they had no choice but to pay attention to me, because they're like, hey, this guy's ripping on my hat right now. Like, you know, like what the fuck? It breaks conversation. They're like, what'd you say? And then I'm like, I said this. And you start having that back and forth. And then the people that have been paying attention, they start having an even better time, because maybe they've been annoyed by those people who were just talking throughout the show, right? So I totally agree with you. Do you have any like pre-show rituals, anything that you do to kind of, whether it's listening to music or going over your set, that kind of gets you? Because a lot of what you talked about, you know, obviously the JFL competition, different animal to be changing around your set moments before, right? Like you wouldn't normally do that in a given situation. Running an hour to get to the show and going in, you wouldn't normally do that before a show. So what's your normal like pre-show prep?
I don't really have a pre-show prep. The prep, if there was anything, begins before I even leave the house. I'm not. I'm more of an introvert, more than people would understand. Like I get drained quite easily. I always tell people I got 4 to 6 hours of social time, and then that's it. And so the pre-ritual begins at home, because I have to care. I have to care. I have to be emotionally involved so that I'm not on autopilot, so that it's not just this hollow, sounds like it's a recording type performance. There's a warmth to it. So once I leave my house, the set's already begun. The way I interact with people, the way I talk, like, you know what I'm saying? When you get to the show, half hour before the show, there's going to be people that are like, hi, and you can't just be like, hi, is it going all right? And we go up on stage right there. There's an intimacy that you have to, a bond almost, that you create between the audience, your bookers, the people that own the bar. There's a relationship that's being built, the way they see you and the way that you see the situation. And so once I get on stage, I have assessed that crowd. I know what's happening. You know, like if it's a crowd where it looks like chaos, I will just get on stage and I'll be like, listen, we're about to have a comedy show. Now, all I need to know is this. If you are going to listen and you really want to be a part of the show, make some noise. And then whoever claps, I go, so understand something, guys. You see, you 5 that clapped, you're the only people I'm talking to. So none of this other stuff matters. It's just me and you 5. What that does is they now understand that they don't need them, that it's all on them now. And if they don't like it, they don't like it. And if they do like it, they could say, yeah, I wish these idiots would shut up. Not, oh my God, this guy's bombing.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's how I would usually tackle. But again, how did I learn that? Through failing.
Yeah, no, I totally get what you mean. When did, because like you said before, and I've seen you're a very explosive personality on stage. So I totally understand like the feeling of being drained because you were literally like it's a sport, like what you're
Yeah.
doing on stage, I tend to go back and forth to one spot back. But when did that click for you? When was there a moment in your career where you were like, this is my voice. This is like how I want to be portrayed. This is who I want to be on stage. Because a lot of comedians will be doing impressions of their favorite comedians for the first couple of years, right? Their influences.
Mm-hmm. For myself, what I myself imitated people. You might even still see hints of it. Like, for example, Chris Rock was a massive influence on me. Um, Eddie Murphy, Bill Burr, Louis C.K. The list goes on. There's a lot of people that I had influences from. When I realized that who I was when I was with my friends, we all have the hangout moments. Like comics, we love it to hang out with each other and we just talk and we laugh. And the riffs that were coming were just free flowing. I didn't have I didn't have any intention of a setup or a punchline. I'm just being naturally fun, enjoying myself. And when I realized that voice was completely different from the one on stage, I was like, well, then why am I using this one on stage when this one is working right here? This one is who I am. And I would say that happened man, around the 8-9 year mark is around when I started to really click. And then I will say I've been doing comedy 16 years. I will say that I feel that at the 15-year mark, I finally believed, oh yeah, no, I'm ready now. Now I'm like certified funny. You put me against, if you were at a live show with the best comedians in the world, I would stand toe to toe with them, and that took 15 years of work. So I would say at the 8 or 9 year mark, I found my voice. And by year 15, I had honed that voice into a very sharp and lethal blade. And now I cut through crowds everywhere I go around the world.
It's got to be in your bio somewhere. Sterling Scott cuts through crowds. What was, because everyone has the story of like the first time that they got on stage, whether it went good or it went horribly. But I want to know, along with that, I'd like to know, like, when was the moment in your head where you started really thinking like, this is something I want to do, or I want to try to do this instead of, any other path? There's so many paths to life that you could have gone down, right? You could have been an engineer. You could have, done so many different things. So why comedy for you?
I realized that I was going to be a comedian for the rest of my life, because when I realized that I wasn't a stand-up comedian because I chose to, I was a stand-up comedian because that's who I am. All parts of me is a stand-up comic. You put me in any job, any life situation, anywhere, and I will pull apart the situation, assess, and put it back together and deliver it in a comedic fashion or form. So stand-up comedy is not what I do, it's who I am. And when I realized this is actually when I got booed at the Apollo Theater. In my first year, yeah, I know all these great places, and I
I'm gonna have
failed
like a
at all of them.
sick top 10 craziest Sterling Scott stories.
I performed in my first year of comedy, I had a hot five. And, when a comedian is starting out and they have a hot five, it's a good and a bad, because you start to get confidence on stage. You know what it sounds like to kill, but that's all you've got is that five.
Yeah, that's
So
what's scary about it.
right. And I wanted to challenge myself. I wanted to see, like I still am like this to this day. I've always seen how far I can push, where where does my skills end, and then that's where I start working from the next day. So I went to the Apollo and I sat in line for 16 hours, and I did the auditions. You have to do 3 auditions. I went through 3 90-second auditions, and in 90 seconds I had received the little slip that said you're allowed to perform at the Apollo Theater live.
Wow.
Now, once I got that slip in my hand, the person running everything said, by the way, this is on a Wednesday. It's a family show. So all of the material that you used up to now, you're not allowed to do. You have clean material, correct? And me sitting there like, yeah, of course I do. Of course I do. I don't have no damn clean material. That was everything I had. I don't have nothing else.
About to go write it right now.
Yeah. So then they tell you it was 3 weeks later when I got to perform. But what's 3 weeks to a first-year comic? It's just stress. So I had to go to, and back then in my first year of comedy, I only performed 12 times in my first year because stage time was so hard to get. So I had to just write this stuff out, say it in my head, and hope for the best. I got past, hi, how's you guys doing tonight? And then the booing just began. So I got booed off. I got danced off, the whole 9.
No.
And I was sitting, there's change rooms underneath the stage. And that's where you go when you come off stage. And I'm sitting in this change room and I'm listening to the crowd and the fact that I just got booed off at the Apollo, and I didn't feel hurt. I didn't feel pain. All I could think was, if I can get back on that stage, I would do it better again. And I realized at that point that if at my lowest of low, all I could think about was how to get back out there and do it again, that's the moment when I said, I'm a stand-up comic for life to the day I die. And that's how it is. I will be able to, I have the abilities to do lots of other things that, come with the skill set of being, a wordsmith and an orator, but I'm a stand-up comedian first and foremost. And I'll be a stand-up comedian when I die.
I love that, man. And what was that very first set like?
When I came back realizing joyful.
No. I was gonna say like first set ever.
Oh, first set ever?
Yeah.
Horrible. My first set was like my first time having sex because I could not get it up. And I panicked. That
would have been a great way to open.
Yeah. Well, I had never been on stage.
Yeah.
I had no clue. So I'll give you the backstory on how I ended up in a situation again. You want to talk about bombing? Here we go.
Yeah.
So I originally wanted to be an actor. That didn't pan out. I tried to get on the Much Music VJ search. Back in those days,
I did the same thing.
Yeah, and you know what?
Tried Much Music VJing, tried acting, and then went right to comedy.
Right. So then you understand that was a big deal to be on Much Music VJ search. And I was auditioning live, and they were like, oh my God, Sterling's amazing. Then I submitted a video. I auditioned in 2 different cities.
Wow. And
I submitted a video, and the video was doing so well. They were using it on the commercials. They were using it online. And so I was like, oh my gosh, I'm definitely going to be on the show. And I didn't get on the show. I was destroyed. So then my friends took me to Kenny Robinson's Nubian night to cheer me up. I went, and then they were like, hey, we're giving out bottles of wine to anybody with a talent. And my friends go, he does stand-up comedy. Now, no, I don't. I was just known as a funny person. So I went on stage and I told a street joke. I didn't even know what street jokes were at that time. But I used to have that's how bad it is. In my first year of comedy, I had a street joke in my act. But I didn't know. So anyways, I tell the street joke and the crowd goes wild. I get the bottles of wine. We get drunk. I'm now in the back alley at Yuck Yucks, and John Paul and Kenny Robinson are there. And John Paul goes, yo, you're funny, man. Where are you from? I'm drunk. So I start lying. I go, I'm from Edmonton. At the time, I was not even living in Edmonton. I was living in Toronto. I was like, you guys just don't know me because I'm from Edmonton. And then Kenny Robinson comes and he goes, hey kid, good job, man. You wanna do a show?
That's a good Kenny Robinson.
Yes. So they book me for the next Nubian night. I've never done stand-up.
Oh no.
I walk into
Nubian night on your first.
Yes, my first show ever is on Nubian night. So there's 300 people wrapped up in this room, and I walked out. And I was so nervous. I was drinking in the bath stalls. I was so scared, and I came out, and I did a Trinidadian accent for some reason, and it was just like, what the it was horrible. It was horrible. I bombed. I didn't get any laughs. I almost got booed off. I did so bad. Kenny Robinson would not let me back on that stage for over a year.
Say it in his voice.
Yeah, he's like, all right, kid, where you want to hear from me, man? You think you a star? Nah, man, not tonight, kid. Nah, not tonight. You gotta take some time off. Learn how to write a joke. Come on back. So over a year and a half later, I come back. Now I actually moved to Toronto. So my very first time ever on stage was officially Kenny Robinson's Nubian night. But then I left and actually moved to Alberta. And that's when I started comedy. And so that's why I started comedy in Edmonton. That's my home. That's why
you started there before you even were there. Right. You told them that you were doing comedy there. You're like, I gotta stick to this story. I gotta move to Edmonton, I guess.
So I went to Edmonton, started comedy. And
that's a commitment to the bit if I've ever heard one.
So now when I came back, I had to perform in front of him twice.
Wow.
And then after that, he goes, all right, kid, I'll let you come back. And I came back and I did well, and the story moves on. And as you can see now, I'm a headliner for that show. And it's funny that my very first performance and my last phenomenal performance was on the same stage. Mm-hmm. And so it just shows how life can come full circle, and what the results that I got on my last performance is the ones that I wish I could have had on my first one.
Those
but if I had
phenomenal
to choose,
results though.
Yeah.
When you think about it, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, if I had to choose, I wouldn't have had it any other way. I'd rather have bombed the first one and did good on this one rather than bomb on this one and did good back there.
That's like in 15, well, you said 16 years, right?
Yeah.
So in 16 years, could you imagine that happening in any other job? Like, imagine a guy walks off the street, tells an office worker that he works in this office building and he does a terrible job and they fire him, but it doesn't matter because he never had a job. And then he keeps coming back for 15 years and they make him CEO,
I mean, again,
the workplace equivalent of what just happened in that story.
And that's why I really say that I'm resilient, because I'm sharing with you massive bombs,
but those are the best stories,
right? And things that when people see who I am on stage and they say to themselves, oh, I can't do that, and I'm like, no, you just haven't seen what it looks like to bomb and then come back. Mm-hmm. When you see someone at their low, that's where you find out what they're made of. Yeah. And I say, I see a lot of comedians who I say, you must love comedy more than me, because if I was doing as bad as you, I'd quit. I saw a comedian bomb so hard.
That sounds like some shit Patrice would say to someone's face. Like, that was you, man, I'd quit.
Yeah. Well, that's how I feel sometimes, because I'm like, it's so cringeworthy. And it's like, when you always hear in comedy from people when they say, well, how is so-and-so? And they go, they're a nice guy. It's like,
you don't want to get a nice guy.
You don't want to be the nice guy. It means you're terrible. It means
he's really funny, and you want to be like, he's really funny and he's nice. Like, that's a good
thing
mix.
Out of anybody's mouth is always the truth when it comes to stand-up. When they go, how is so-and-so? And they go, killer, awesome, funny.
Yeah.
But if they go, oh, I like him, there's a nice guy, it's like, oh boy, we love your personality and hate everything about your material. And so when I see these guys, because I'm not saying their names, because honestly they are nice people, but God rest their heart how many times I see them bomb. I had one comic say to me, because I run a lot of shows in Edmonton, and somebody said to me, I'd like to be paid to headline. And one of my biggest faults is I'm too nice.
Mm-hmm.
And
I am the
so I
same way,
didn't
man.
want to give this person the headlining spot because they're very, very weak. And so I said to them, okay, here's what we'll do. I'm going to go and host. I'm going to give you middle. I'll give you 4. For anybody listening, the 4 spot is the best spot on the show because of the fact that the crowd's warmed up.
Mm-hmm.
So then I give him the 4 spot. And then what I did was I did a little bit of material just before him, just to make sure the crowd is really laughing at jokes. And then I said to him, if you can kill from this position, I will headline you. And 3 jokes into his act, he literally says, I will never headline one of Sterling Scott's shows.
No.
He was bombing so bad that a table was laughing and he knew the laughter wasn't for him. And he looked
Oh.
over at the table who's laughing and he says, don't be disrespectful. You know how bad it is that you're bombing so bad that a group of people are laughing.
You have to poo-poo people laughing for the wrong
Yes,
reason. Like,
because you know that they're not laughing at you. And I was
fuck.
crying in the back.
Yeah.
But they learned their lesson. They understand now that it's like, I understand that comedy is subjective, but there is bad comedians.
Yeah.
There is comedians who just don't get it.
I think what it is we get like what you said when you said you had a hot 5. I think we get too ahead of ourselves with what we're capable of doing. And we want to put ourselves in pressure cooker situations to really like make yourself grow. But I've been doing it 12 years and I'm just now like I think I have a tight 10. Yeah. like a really good 10. And sure, like there might be comedians who are 12 years in, they're like, I've already put out 2-hour specials. And I'm like, okay, good for you. But I'm on my journey where I want to make sure that every word coming out of my mouth is getting a laugh. Like I'm at that point where I'm trying to like parse down everything and just trim all the fat possible because I want to be a great comedian. I'm not trying to see how many comedy specials I can put out. I want that first one that I put out to be undeniable, And it's like, oh, he worked on this for 20 years. That's why it's undeniable,
Yeah. I will say, I'm a little disappointed in the comedians who are rushing to put out albums so they can make money because I get why they do it. I mean, when we found out that there was only when I found out about in 2015 is when I first found out about comedy albums. And at that point in time in 2015, there was probably like 5 or 6 comedians that's had an album. And what happened was people found out how much money they were making because of the fact that there was only 5 or 6 albums. And so they all jumped on it. Everybody jumped on the I have an album train. And what upset me was people were doing combination albums because they don't even have an hour. They were doing 20-minute sets, 15-minute sets, 10-minute sets, rushing anything to try to get it on. And the quality of comedy albums have plummeted. I've seen people who are not booked as a headliner. Like you can't get a booking as a headliner, but they're putting out an album.
That's crazy.
What are you doing?
You have not had the quality time to work out 45 minutes for me, I'm like, I will not put out an hour special until I've done several years headlining weekends at clubs and touring. I'm not even close to that yet. You know what I mean? Like,
and there's a lot of people doing it right now, man.
I just couldn't do it. I just it feels like going into the gym, like me, like I'm like I look like if spaghetti were a person, right? And so like me going in and thinking like I want to get strong, so I'm just gonna lift this 300-pound barbell right now. I'm gonna throw my back out. I'm gonna pull my hamstring. I'm gonna do some goofy shit to my body because I thought that I could do it, but I'm just not there for it, not ready for it.
Exactly. It's kind of like they're taking pictures next to 300-pound barbell, but they ain't lifting it.
Yeah. That's exactly what it is.
Especially now with social media, I see a lot of that too. I mean, shout out to anybody who's getting it anywhere. But I noticed a lot of social media comedians, they bomb a lot, but because they have a following online, they have a huge turnover. And
Mhm.
so they're kind of learning while remaining in the spotlight. Whereas other comics had to learn how to be funny and then get your audience. And
Yeah.
I mean, but again, however you do it, however you get it, good luck, because I've been doing this 16 years and I only now figured out how to be, as you said, undeniably funny. Um, but I don't know how to get the crowds to come see me.
Yeah,
So
now that's the last part you gotta work to
yeah,
get. But
I gotta figure that part out.
that part though, I feel like it's just another learning curve. Like I would so much rather be in a position where I can bomb and no one there knows me and learn from that and grow and then gain an audience when I feel like I'm a more stable comedian. Like this podcast is helping, grow a small core audience, but it's mostly because I listened to so many podcasts and I was like, this is the best way for people who want to be fans of me to really get to know me. It's unfiltered, it's unedited, like we're just having a conversation. They're getting to know you too. And I feel like that type of an audience, specifically a podcast audience, is they're going to be with you, even if you go through some shit on stage. Whereas,
Yeah.
like, if they see, your 1 minute clips and you're not funny in a minute on stage, they're going to be pissed because they
Yeah.
spent $50 on a ticket or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And now you're in that kind of situation where you have millions of followers and you don't have a product to give to them, like that's a nightmare situation for me. I'm like, I can figure out the audience after I get really good at comedy.
Well, these guys they're a different breed. They believe in learning in front of the bombing in front of the crowd. You got to have some grit in you, man, because
kudos to Ti, because that's a crazy situation. Like everyone knows Ti.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and they know his music, so to try to shift into comedy because it's just something that he wants to do, that's incredibly brave, right? Like,
yeah, I mean, a lot of people think though that stand-up comedy they're just entitled to being good because of whatever they've done before. Stand-up comedy requires you to leave your ego at the door. So if you're somebody who's only going to surround yourself with yes men, and you're going to not listen to the fact that why are you getting, because he got booed at places, right?
yeah.
And it's like, are you not listening? Are you, but again, they have what you call like the celebrity status. So for people who don't know, when you're a celebrity and you walk on stage, you have about 10 to 15 minutes where you could say anything and the crowd will be with you.
They're just pumped that you're
excited.
there.
Exactly. And so when these guys come on and they're doing 10-minute sets and they're thinking, I'm amazing.
Yeah.
And then when they do an hour, all of a sudden people are like, this is boring.
Yeah.
And so I mean the everybody's welcome in the world of comedy, but take off your shoes and respect the game, because it's the real deal out here. Nobody will care. But one thing that I always say is try to keep your blinders on and focus on your path. There's a reason why horses wear blinders, because if you're watching someone else's race, you're not running yours. And then you'll only see them pass you.
Yeah,
you're not going to understand why. So look forward.
Yeah,
what I'm saying? Look forward and just keep running your race. That's their journey. That's their path. Stay in your lane. Run your race. Because what's going to happen is if you keep looking at other people, you start becoming bitter. You start judging. You start saying, you shouldn't deserve this and you shouldn't get that. I should get that. I should get that. Listen, you only get in comedy what you get. That's it. You don't get what you deserve. You get what you got.
You don't even get what you put in.
Exactly.
You just get what you get.
There's
no
zero guarantees.
Yeah.
So all you can do is run your race. And that's why, regardless of social media people or rappers or anybody doing their thing, that's their journey. This is mine.
They'll figure it out.
Focus on mine. Yeah, I got to focus on mine.
Yeah.
So if people are buying their tickets, that's good for them. I don't hate on that. God bless you. Do your thing. I need to figure out how to get my tickets sold. So I can't really be out here focusing on other people. So try not to be a hater, basically.
Yeah. I found collaboration too is the best it's the best thing for comedy, because when we eliminate that, like, before the internet, there was that like starving artist mindset where there's only a limited amount of opportunities and there's only a limited audience, and you're kind of fighting for that top spot. But now you're in a position, like, I look at what's happening with the New York and the LA comedy scene, and it's beautiful because those two comedy scenes like hated each other for so long. And now New York is looking at what LA did with the podcasting network of, I mean, comedians just coming on each other's podcasts and blowing them up, and they've all become millionaires. And now they're coming over to New York City, and all the New York guys are doing that now too with each other. Just everybody have each other and help each other and push each other up. If one guy takes off, put him on your show, and then he takes off, and then it's just amazing to see that the whole mindset of comedy is changing in that way. There's less bitter comics, I find.
Yep, definitely. I will say that because podcasting and social media changed how comedy is viewed. And so this is where a lot of us are adapting. And some of us are stuck in our ways saying, well, I just want to do it live. And, you know, like myself, I hate social media.
Yeah.
But, you know, when the time comes, once I get my money up, I'm going to have to hire a social media manager. So it's like someone that's going to be building on my online presence. Then I'm going to need someone who is a tour manager who books shows all the time. And then that way I can be doing my road shows and they can be promoting me through my social media platform. And then that's what's going to get me out on the road, because like, it's like a juggling act. You know what I mean? Mitch Hedberg said it best. It's like stand-up comedy is the only art form in where when you get good at it, they ask you to do something else.
Yeah.
It's like, I can cook really good. It's like, great. Do you know how to grow carrots?
Yeah.
And it's like, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
You know, because the stand-up comedy, they want you to write. They want you to act. They want you to do podcasts. They want you to be a social media guy. And it's like, why can't I just be the comedian?
You know, now you got to be a video editor.
You got to be a video editor, photographer. You got to be your own paparazzi. It's ridiculous. So it's like, it's changed the face of the way that comedy is received, but it's also made comedy more global. So instead of being the old man shaking my fist on the lawn, I'm just going to cut my grass. You know what I'm saying? I'm just going to cut my grass.
Got to adapt. Yeah. There's one question that I always love asking the guests towards the end of the podcast is, if you can make a phone call to 15-year-old Sterling and give him a piece of advice based on what you know now, knowing that it won't affect your current timeline. So anything you say to him is not going to affect your current life whatsoever. You just have all this knowledge, though, that you can give to a 15-year-old version of yourself. What would you say?
I need a second to think on that.
Yeah, take your time.
Because I got to think, what is it I know today that I wish I knew yesterday? And I guess it would be everybody has their own journey. And as you are watching theirs, just understand that that's their path, not yours. And, you know, what's meant for you is meant for you. Because the reason why I would pass that on as advice is because I wasted too many years being bitter because of the fact that I didn't get things that other people got and I felt like I deserved it. And so I became like bitter and a hater. And that ruined many years of my growth. And so I'm very happy to have shed that. And I don't ever even want to go back to thinking that way. Even when I talk about like a comics and stuff like that, who I'm like, they're not good at it or whatever. It's like, that's their journey, that's their path. I don't want to be feeling like anybody is taking from me. You know, it's what am I giving to get what I need? And because like that makes you bitter. It makes me, I was bitter. I would always be like, oh, how come they're getting this? And the reality is, if they're getting it, that's their journey, that's their path. And you can't be mad at them. You know, they're not going to say no to these opportunities.
Of course, yeah. Well, I shouldn't take it because Sterling would probably want it.
Exactly. So when I realized I was wasting all that energy because to hate something requires energy. And when I realized I was putting wasted energy into this being a hater, and I'm embarrassed to say that, but I want to say it so that people can understand that no matter how good you may perceive a person, you don't know their journey. And which is also why I shouldn't be jealous of someone else's journey. I don't know what work they put in. I don't know what they've been up to. I don't know how, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, don't take these things personal when other people don't get it. You know, when I didn't get Just for Laughs, it destroyed me one year. It destroyed me. Then when I didn't get a Juno, I was devastated, like devastated to the point where I didn't want to talk for 3 days. And then I'm sitting there, feeling down in the dumps. 2022, I'm the number 2 played comic in the country all of a sudden. So it's like, focus on that. You know what I'm saying? Focus on that. Instead of looking at, I didn't get a Juno. Who cares if you didn't get a Juno? I don't even know who the hell that panel is. We don't even know who's judging it. We don't know the criteria. We don't know what they like. It's a subjective art form. How do you say which one gets it? Instead, what I do look at is that there's millions of people listening to Sirius XM radio, and they can't wait to hear a joke from Sterling Scott.
That's a great way to end it, man. I want everybody to go check out sterlingscottlive.com for everything Sterling. You got upcoming shows on there. At Sterling Jokes on Twitter, at Sterling Jokes on Instagram, and at Sterling Jokes on TikTok. All those links are in the description below. But thanks so much for making the time, man. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. Everybody watching, listening, don't forget to rate, like, subscribe. You know, all those things that help the algorithm. But for now, I've been your host, Johnny Rogers. I'll see you on the next one.
You've been listening to The Johnny Rogers Show. New episodes air every Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.